Good afternoon, everybody. Good to see you. I am here on the traditional territory of the Lekwungen-speaking people, the Songhees and Esquimalt First Nation, and I want to just brief British Columbians on some changes that will take place as we go into the long weekend here in British Columbia and, of course, across Canada and indeed around the world, where we have faith-based organizations celebrating Passover, celebrating Easter. Ramadan's about to begin. Vaisakhi is just around the corner. Bonnie Henry and I and Adrian Dix spoke with 130 faith leaders yesterday to talk to them about how best to deal with this time when many faith groups are coming together. It's also a time, I think, when people look towards the outdoors. It's going to be a spectacularly wonderful weekend weather-wise, and all the more reason for us to take stock of where we are with our fight against the COVID-19 virus, and to reassert the importance of us staying the course and abiding by the directions that Dr. Henry has been giving for the past number of weeks. One of the issues that I wanted to talk about specifically is the return of snowbirds and the arrival of repatriation flights of Canadians who have been for the past number of weeks in other countries, other jurisdictions where COVID-19 regulations may not be as stringent as they are here. And although we welcome home all of those travelers, we also are asking them to join with all of us in the battle that we've been waging together over the past number of weeks. We've been staying home. We've been giving up some of our liberties in the interest of the benefit to the greater good. And as people return to British Columbia, we have an expectation that they will follow suit. So when people arrive at the Vancouver International Airport, they will be required to have a self-isolation plan. Now, this self-isolation plan is not just a suggestion, it is a directive from the Public Health Office. It also is consistent with the Quarantine Act that has been put in place by the federal government, and it is mandatory for those coming back to British Columbia to have a plan. And we're going to be taking steps with the federal government to ensure that travelers coming back to Canada, whether they be at land crossings, whether they be at Vancouver International Airport, that they will be met by BC officials, they'll be met by federal officials, and they will be required to explain in detail with forms that will be provided on flight, forms that are also available on the web, to ensure that these legal documents are completed upon arrival and that a plan has been put in place. I believe this is a reasonable expectation, as you know, all of you who are listening and all of those across British Columbia who are working very hard to bend the curve. We have an expectation that those that have been away, as grateful as they are, I'm sure, to be back in British Columbia, they have to pick up the ball and carry it just as we all have. That plan must be approved by BC officials, and if there is not a self-isolation plan, a quarantine site will be prepared and made available to those individuals until they can get themselves together. This has been a plan that has been agreed to by the federal government. They will be joining us next week comprehensively. But they're not quite ready yet, and I don't make that as a criticism. I just say that we are ready to go. We have been for some time. We have more resources on the ground in British Columbia, obviously, than the federal government does. I've spoken regularly with Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland, as well as with the Prime Minister and other premiers across the country, and we need to make sure that all of the work that Canadians have been doing is not erased by a group of people who may come back and not have the same level of perseverance that British Columbians have had to this point in time. I want to reinforce that in order for all of us to stay safe, in order for us to protect those frontline workers, those healthcare workers that are putting their lives on the line to protect British Columbians, we need to flatten the curve. We need to listen to the directives that we have received daily for weeks and weeks from Dr. Henry and Minister Dix, that we need to ensure that we're self-isolating if we're coming back from a jurisdiction that has COVID-19 in place and could be a risk to fellow citizens. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. And I also